almost 1.4 million people, loosely described as foreign workers. These are largely S pass holders, work permit holders, employment pass holders, and domestic helpers. And in all, they form 25% of the resident population. They work in virtually every industry, just to name a few: building and construction, transport, F&B, retail, health, and elder care.
In a piece today, Associate Editor at the Straits Times, Ven Sreenivasan, wrote that it's time to rethink Singapore's over-reliance on foreign workers. This, as the epicenter of the virus spread here, has moved from the local populace to the migrant worker community. So let's get Ven in on this discussion. So Ven, to reduce our overdependence on foreign workers, you wrote that Singaporeans must be more open-minded to the nobility of work, any work. Blue-collar jobs must also be respected. But some background first. The idea that blue-collar jobs isn't noble, so to speak, how and when did that come about in Singapore, Vin?
Well, to begin with, it wasn't always that way. I mean, you go back to the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, the formative years of Singapore. All work was noble. I mean, our fathers, our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers, wherever they came from, whether it's in the Southeast Asian archipelago, China, India, they worked very hard. They were all blue-collar workers. Most of them were. But by the late 80s, late 1980s, we transitioned to becoming a developed nation. And, increasing education, affluence, changes in mindsets, came into play. That's when the younger generation, people started seeking white-collar jobs, preferably in the fast-growing financial sector, the services sector, the Shenton Way type of jobs. Job hopping became common. So, that's when the transition happened. And then fast forward to today, most young people will not work on anything that is menial, sweaty, dirty, dangerous. I mean, you cannot get too many people to go out to work in Tuas, in any of the factories. Even as a supervisor, much less as a technical person. That's where we are today.
And then how far are we in changing this mindset in Singapore? Now, we understand blue-collar work is viewed quite differently in the US, Australia, and even in Europe.
How far are we? Well, not very far, I'm afraid. Partly also due to the fact that blue-collar jobs, or as they are called, don't pay all that much in Singapore. It's quite different in developed Western countries. Western, I mean, even Australia, New Zealand. For example, you go to Australia, a technician, a plumber, a mechanic is highly valued and well paid. And in fact, some of these guys are better paid than a lot of white-collar people like teachers and civil servants, mid-level white-collar. So, even in Australia, for example, immigration policy favors blue collars. So, I mean, if I was a plumber and if I applied to go work in Australia, I'd have a better chance than going in as a teacher or a journalist. So that's where we are now.
Well, Ven, you posed this question in the article: can jobs in sectors like retail, F&B, transport, and selected others be redesigned to make them more palatable for residents? Can they, Ven? And if so, what needs to be done?
It's not going to be an easy solution, in a sense that I mean, let's just take F&B for example. We have lots and lots of restaurants. We have lots and lots of people working in these places, and many of these people are not Singaporean. How do you redesign the process? How do you make one with four tables like you find in Paris or London or New York? Technology, maybe some job redesign. You got to improve productivity. You got to increase incentives for locals to come in. I don't know. I mean, should we bring back tipping? Take away the service charge? Would that draw in more people, more locals, because they'll take home higher salary and tip? I mean, this calls for a lot of discussion. Pay is a big factor in Singapore, where cost of living is quite high. But the mindset also has to change among Singaporeans. Now, waiting on somebody or serving somebody is not a menial task. It's not a low-level job. It's not a job that does not deserve respect. So there needs to be a mindset change.
Right. Then on that note, then will Singapore be better or worse off if we employed fewer foreign workers?
If we employ fewer foreign workers, it depends. I mean, if you're talking about construction, manufacturing, essential services, offshore and marine, we will need foreign workers. We just don't have the workforce. So if we don't get them, we will be worse off. But I believe in other areas, for example, in transport, in logistics, in F&B, in retail, we can do with most Singaporeans. I don't want to say less foreigners, but Singaporeans with better salaries, better incentives to redesign the job, make it more attractive.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Ven. We've been speaking to Associate Editor for the Straits Times, Ven Sreenivasan. If you're watching us on YouTube, the link to his commentary is in the description below.